We've got a lovely winter's day, but I'm not here to talk about that. What I am here to talk about is what's going on in Syria. And I've got a series of truth bombs for you. So we're told that the dictator of Syria, President Assad, is now in Russia. So is that true? Let's assume that it is for the purposes of the rest of this video. So the first thing to kind of think about is that this coup, what we're told is a coup against Assad, has happened very, very quickly. The thing that they're not telling you is who's organised this coup, who's actually done it, who's done the fighting to depose Assad. And it's basically, it's not grassroots or anything. It's basically a bunch of Wahhabist, so people who claim to follow a particular religion, but really in practice they're just gangsters, basically. Or you could also, maybe a more accurate term for them is mercenaries. So these people are, well, it's the same as Hamas in whatever part of the world you want to call it, Palestine, Gaza Strip, whatever you want to call it. That these people, if you actually look into it, they were set up and funded by the same organisation that funded the Taliban in Afghanistan and all of these other rebel groups that claim to represent a particular religion. You know, some people say, oh, it's all the fault of the Jews. Well, that's a little bit silly, isn't it? You know, the current Israeli government, or Israeli governments in the past, might have set up Hamas, but they're the same. To try to suggest that the Israeli government is any different from the British government, is any different from the American government, it's part of this same organisation, this organisation that I call the Big Club. And their religion isn't Judaism, it's Satanism. The other thing is that I've got a reasonably good memory. So if you cast your minds back to, when was it, 2016, around that time? So back then, it was the tail end of the Obama presidency, and it was leading up to the election of Donald Trump, and Trump was against Hillary Clinton. Now at that time, it seemed to me, Syria was in the news back then. And again, you know, I remember Sheila Fogarty, let her name be remembered, BBC prostitute, and she was saying stuff like Assad barrel bombing his own people, and she was essentially cheerleading for these Wahhabist, well, I don't know what you'd call them, mercenary kind of thugs, basically, and they were trying to depose Assad at that time. Now again, I can remember this. Just look at this beautiful sunrise here. So yeah, I can remember all of this, and at the time, Vladimir Putin did not want the Assad regime to fall. So he was basically providing support, military support, and he also gave the Americans warning that they weren't going to do a no-fly zone in Syria and basically bomb Syria back into the Stone Age like they'd done in Libya. You know, because, again, you know, there's no excuse for not knowing this. Like, basically, when the West gets involved in countries like Afghanistan, like Iraq, like Libya, what happens is they get destroyed, and then the likes of Halliburton pick up the contracts to rebuild it all. And it's just, and then the arms making, the money laundering. So the line at the time, 2016, was that Putin was supporting President Assad in Syria, and it looked like there could be a conflict between the Russians and the US, NATO, over Syria. Now, what happened back then was that Trump got elected, and then the kind of war drums stop beating. And you know, that's not to, please don't say, oh, like oh, Donald Trump, like, he's a psyop as well. Yeah, I know all of that. But the facts is that kind of like Syria crisis, conflict, whatever you want to call it, proxy war, it stopped immediately. So something went on there. Beautiful light today. I guess the other thing as well to notice is that back then, those rebel groups were still there, but Assad, plus whatever help he was getting from Russia, the Russian government, was enough to stop them. They weren't able to depose Assad, and they were trying really, really hard. So the first kind of like thing that I want to think about here is like, what is going on? Like, how did this happen so quickly? I'm smelling a rat here. I'm smelling a rat. What has changed? Why is this regime, this Assad regime, suddenly weaker? Or how come these rebels have suddenly got stronger? One kind of out there thing could be that maybe some of the money that's supposed to be going to Ukraine for arms has maybe gone elsewhere, to these mercenaries in the Middle East. Maybe this is part of it. Personally, it's fairly obvious that Vladimir Putin is part of the big club. He's one of Klaus's former young global leaders for tomorrow. I'll put a little clip in of that now, because there'll be some dodos that will say, oh no, Putin's... No, he's part of the big club as well. So another...
So your forests, you have a young population, you have a relatively well-educated population. You can use the fourth industrial revolution to create, let's say, fast-track growth for your country.
My commitment will be to add value. We'll be part of the young leaders' initiative.
This is Merkel, Tony Blair. They were all, even President Putin, they were all young global leaders before.
So another option is that the big club has told Putin to stand down, to not support Assad. Maybe that's it. The big club is desperate to create internal conflict within countries, civil wars. And I think their preferred method is to try to create conflict by agitating rival groups, nominally religious groups, but people who basically don't understand. They follow a distorted view of religion, a corrupted view of religion. So, you know, this is obviously what they're going to try and do in Syria between people who nominally follow one Abrahamic religion, and try to get them fighting and murdering another group of people who follow a different variety of an Abrahamic religion. And ideally they would, you know, they want to try and get some media images of, I don't know, people being burnt in cages, like, you know, absolutely horrible stuff to create outrage. And then you'll get the papers, they'll blame it on, you know, Group A, victim, it was Group B that did it, they're inhuman people, blah, 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 blah. That's what they'll try and do, and they'll play both sides. They'll play both sides, and they have controlled opposition on both sides. So there'll be fake people on both sides agitating for you to be violent towards the other side. And and this also explains what's going on in Britain with the people staying in the hotels. It also explains why they've been so keen to import people who aren't Christians into the UK. They want to try to get people in who are as extreme as possible. And then, you know, they want them fighting. They want them fighting and murdering each other. And then they can come in with the solution, which is, you need a police state. You need a police state to restore order. And the police state was what they wanted to begin with. The old classic problem reaction solution. So according to kind of data that's available on the internet, 15% of Syria's population are said to be Christian. These Wahhabists, it's not good. I don't think they're going to kind of tolerate the presence of those people, the Christians living in Syria. So sadly, I expect a lot of bloodshed. You know, I expect a lot of those Christians to either, you know, they'll be told to stop being Christian, or kind of, I don't know, get burnt in a cage or something like that. So that's not good. If I was a Christian living in Syria, I'd think very carefully about getting the hell out of there as ASAP. And then the final thing is just the corruption of religion. And it's not just this Wahhabist branch of, you know, whatever. I'm not even going to say the name of this religion, because, you know, it's probably going to trigger the Gulag tube algorithm. But it's the same in Christianity. You have people, you know, do you think the Pope, has he got anything to, when he says he's a Christian, do you actually believe that? You know, same as Justin Welby. Justin Welby can claim that he's a Christian. It doesn't mean that he is, though, does it? And I think it's the same with these Wahhabists. You know, they claim to represent a certain religion, but just because somebody says that, it doesn't mean that they actually do follow that religion. And I think that's all I want to say today about this. I don't know exactly what they're up to, but I smell a rat. You know, that this conflict in 2016 was going on for months and months and months, and they tried it, but they couldn't get rid of Assad. And as I say, you know, the likes of Sheila Fogarty, I remember her in particular. She was absolutely awful. You know, she was cheerleading for NATO to start carpet bombing Syria. They were desperate to get rid of him, but they couldn't get rid of Assad. Now he's gone in like a day or two. Something is going on. I'm not sure what they're up to, but I don't know. These people, they are Satanists. What they're into is killing people, killing human beings, and obviously that's not good. So I think we should, personally, I did pray for the people that are living in Syria. And I think we should all do that. Pray for the people that are living there. So that's all I want to say today, so God bless.